Anthropologists tell us that about 100,000 years ago, a group of hominids were living in southern Africa. All of us, whatever our race, religion, nationality, political affiliation, all of us are descended, anthropologists tell us, from that group of people. Some of them moved north, and eventually they spread all across Africa, and then some of them came up to the land bridge of the Middle East, and they came into southern Europe. Some took a left turn, populated what we know as Europe. They apparently encountered a similar species, the Neanderthals, and their gene pool led to those of us who are of European descent. Others, when they crossed that land bridge, they took a right turn and they went over across India, and they went over across Southeast Asia. Some went down to Australia. Some actually went all the way up to the north around the Bering Sea. And somewhere between 30,000 and 10,000 years ago, they crossed that land bridge and they went down across what we would call Alaska and Canada and spread across North America and South America. Now, when you hear anthropologists tell that story, one of your questions has to be, why did people keep spreading out? I mean, especially, you think the ones who ended up, the Eskimos and the people who live in the far north, why would they ever want to live in such a inhospitable place? And one reason that anthropologists tell us is that they were hunter-gatherers. Now, I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but when you're a hunter-gatherer tribe, you need a lot of land. You need the berries and the nuts and the roots and the prey animals that are in a certain amount of land. And you don't want another tribe coming into your land, otherwise your children will be hungry. So tribes formed, and they would defend their land, and they would force other tribes to have to go somewhere else and find some other land of their own to depend, or to depend on. So these different tribes, it makes sense when you think of it this way, that they develop different ways of painting or tattooing their bodies, wearing different feathers, styling their hair and their clothing in different ways as tribal markers. And something else developed, anthropologists tell us, religions. Because the tribes that could circle around a stone idol and sing the same songs and follow the same rituals and dances, they would develop greater cohesion. And so their tribal religion would give them a survival advantage over other tribes. And one of the big questions people are asking today is that all religion is? Is it just a tribal marker? I mean, lots of people have noticed that religion often inspires violence. We might say more accurately that tribalism inspires violence, and then religion supports tribalism. But lots of people, especially younger people, especially highly educated people, feel that religion is now part of the problem. And they're staying away from religion because they don't want to be part of a tribe that's hostile toward all other tribes. They feel we're at a point in history we need to learn to work together and get along and collaborate to face the challenges that face all humanity. Now, in an interesting way, Jesus and his disciples faced the same question, the same struggle. What is religion for? Is it for creating a little us group that's opposed to the other group? The disciples came to Jesus one day in the Gospel of Mark, and they say, hey, somebody is confronting evil powers in your name, but they're not doing it with us. They're not one of us. They're not part of us. We tried to stop that guy. Now, Mark doesn't tell us this, but I'm pretty sure at that moment, Jesus gave the disciples a major eye roll. I'm pretty sure he was, just at that point, just thinking, oh, how long do I have to be with you guys? You just don't get it. Come on, guys, he says, don't stop him. Anyone who is not against us is for us. We're not looking for enemies to outcompete. We're looking for allies. We're trying to bring people together. We're not looking for who to cut off and reject. We're building a movement, not a club. Then come some words that seem really harsh and easily misunderstood. But I think they're worded strongly because the lesson they teach is really, really important. And I think that lesson is deeply related to this issue of the conflict and violence that we often experience with other people, other groups, even other religions. Jesus says, don't you dare put a stumbling block in front of one of these little ones who believe in me. In other words, someone who's trying to do right, don't criticize them. Don't you dare criticize them. Don't trip them up. Don't make things harder for them. Don't get in their way. They're your allies. They're not your enemies. Don't you dare mess with them. And then here's what really sounds strange. He says, if your own hand, if your own foot, if your own eye causes you to stumble, amputate it. Now, I don't think Jesus is advocating self-mutilation. But I think in context what he's saying is, look, religious people always get obsessed and focused on that guy over there, the person of the other denomination, the other religion, the other wing of the party. And what he's trying to say to them is, look, guys, your enemy is not over there. Your enemy is inside of you. If you want to talk about violent imagery, don't be violent towards somebody over there. The issue is parts of you, your own hand, your own foot, your own eye. Your hand, what would that evoke? Your actions, your power, your strength and skill that can so easily be abused. Your foot, what motivates you, what drives you, what moves you, what takes you places. Your eye, how you see, your outlook, your perspective, your assumptions, your world view. Maybe then Jesus' point starts to make sense. Your greatest enemy is not over there. It's not that guy who you think is your rival, your competitor. Your greatest enemy is inside you. It's the same thing he said in many different ways. For example, you might remember Jesus said, don't try to take the splinter out of somebody else's eye. Focus on the huge log in your own eye. Don't be focused on that guy over there. What about you? You focus on your issues. That's where you should begin. Your real enemy, it's that part of you that wants to make them bad and you good. Them outside, you inside. Them enemy, you elite. Don't try to purify or eliminate or change them. That's what the language of salt and fire is all about. No, focus on your own desires, your own drives, your own biases. Let the salt and fire purify what's going on inside of you. Well, today, those words and insights from Jesus seem to me to be pretty important. Christian and Muslim, Israeli, Palestinian. We're still building tribes and using religion to justify our hatred and our bias and our hostility. We create idols today and circle around those idols so that we can create an us versus them. You have the God of the Republicans, the God of the Democrats. You have the religious idols, and you have secular idols too. We're still forming lots of tribes, but now we have a new problem. You see, 100,000 years ago, 30,000 years ago, even 5,000 years ago, human beings, when they had conflicts, could spread out farther and farther and farther around the globe. But guess what, folks? We've spread out all the way around the globe, and now we've encountered one another. We don't have any more land to send people away to. We've reached a point in human history where there's nowhere else to go. And now we have to get along. Years ago, I took a road trip with some friends. We drove from Los Angeles all the way up to Vancouver, British Columbia. And partway through our journey, we came to Portland, Oregon. And as we'd gone through California, there was crazy traffic and there was tense people. And we got up to Oregon and we pulled into a little restaurant in Portland. And my friends and I looked around. Everybody was speaking quietly. They were all being very polite. Our server was so nice to us. And I jokingly said, you know, we just spent some time in LA. Everybody was at each other's throats. Man, we come here to Portland. Everybody's really nice. And she laughed and she said, well, you know, it might be because of our weather. She said, it rains so much here, we have to stay indoors and get along. Well, I can't help but think that the whole world's a little bit like Portland now. We can't keep banishing people farther and farther away. We've covered the whole world. We now have to live on this world and get along. And it raises a big question about religion. For all of us who are Christians, it raises a question of what kind of Christian we're going to be. And I'm not talking about liberal or conservative, Catholic or Protestant, Orthodox or Pentecostal. I'm talking about, are we going to be tribal and hostile in our religion? Are we going to always be judging and rejecting and stumbling the person who's trying to do right, who's trying to do good the way they were taught to? But it's just not with us. It's just not part of our little tribe or sect or group. I mean, even in the Bible, we see this at work. Lots of tribal religion in the Bible. Even the psalm that goes with today's gospel reading. It suggests that God is on our side and not theirs. But no, I think Jesus is challenging us to repent of that way of thinking about religion, that way of thinking about other people, and that way of thinking about God. I think Jesus is challenging us to see things in a very new light. He is not here to fracture the world into yet another hostile tribe with their own tribal religion and tribal God. After all, Jesus proclaimed a kingdom. Kingdom is a big, huge whole. It takes many different parts and integrates them into something larger. By proclaiming a kingdom, Jesus is inviting us to defect from our little tribal hostilities and become part of something that is peaceful and reconciled and bigger and inclusive, even including that guy over there who's casting out evil forces, but not doing it with us. What kind of religion are we going to follow? What kind of people are we going to be? That's what Jesus challenges us with in today's gospel.